A few months ago, archaeologists made an astonishing discovery. Deep in Jerusalem, they found an ancient tomb. All signs pointed to it possibly being the final resting place of King Solomon himself. But what they found in the tomb prompted the government to immediately classify all information as top secret. Why, after 3,000 years, is this tomb still being denied access by the military? Why have all the scholars suddenly fallen silent? And what was so terrifying about the half-collapsed tomb that the authorities were willing to do anything to hide the truth from the world? It was King Solomon, a name everyone knew. The wisest ruler of the ancient world, the legendary temple builder, the possessor of immeasurable wealth, a man who spoke with spirits and commanded jinn. But who was he really? And why is his story so shrouded in mystery that, even after 3,000 years, we don't know exactly where he is buried? Solomon ruled Israel in the 10th century BC. His empire stretched from the mighty Euphrates River to the borders of Egypt. 40 years of uninterrupted peaceful rule, 40 years of unprecedented prosperity, and 40 years of mysterious wisdom, the source of which remains unknown to this day. The Bible tells amazing stories about him, about the famous wisdom between two women quarreling over a baby. When Solomon suggested cutting the baby in half, the real mother immediately relinquished her right and revealed herself through her love. And about his encounter with the mysterious Queen of Sheba, who traveled thousands of miles across deserts and mountains just to test his legendary wisdom. She came with caravans laden with gold, spices, and precious stones, and left admitting that the stories of Solomon's wisdom diminished even the truth. He is said to have written 3,000 proverbs and 1,050 songs. He mastered the language of all the animals and birds. He was able to summon the spirits and give them any command. But most important of all, he built the temple in Jerusalem, which became one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. This temple astonished the people of its time. 7 years of continuous construction. The finest architects, builders, and craftsmen from all over the Mediterranean. Cedar wood from Lebanon, gold from Ophir, and precious stones from India. But ancient texts suggest that the temple was more than just a place of worship. It housed something else, something so important and dangerous that it could only be spoken of in riddles. Legends tell of Solomon's seal, a ring engraved with a 6-pointed star that gave him complete power over spirits and demons. Of his ability to understand the language of all living beings on earth. Of the jinn who helped him build the temple by carrying huge blocks of stone through the air that no human could move. Are these just stories? Legends from ancient times? How, then, could a simple Iron Age king possess knowledge that was thousands of years ahead of his time? How did he know the precise orbits of the planets? How could his physicians perform complex operations? Why were smelting techniques used in the copper mines that, according to modern science, were impossible at the time? And most importantly, why do all ancient sources agree on one point? Solomon was hiding something. Something so important and dangerous that he carried this secret to his grave. For centuries, people have tried to find Solomon's tomb. It has become an obsession for treasure hunters, mystics, archaeologists, and even secret societies. Some were sure it was hidden beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, in a maze of subterranean passages beneath the ruins of the destroyed temple. Others dug in Timnah, near the famous copper mines that had brought him immense wealth. Some went to distant lands, convinced he was buried in the mountains of Ethiopia or even in distant India, countries where his merchant ships often sailed in search of gold and spices. For centuries, Freemasons propagated legends that they knew the secret location of the tomb, but they carefully guarded this knowledge as their sect's greatest secret. Their ancient texts contain a cryptic phrase about the sleeping place of the stars in stone, and a 6-pointed star that would indicate Solomon's final secret. Conspiracy theorists of all stripes believed that the Vatican or Israeli intelligence had already found the tomb, but she was hiding it from the world. After all, the tomb of the wisest man in history may hold many secrets. Esotericists and occultists have spoken of a network of underground tunnels beneath the entirety of Jerusalem leading to the heart of ancient wisdom. Scholars have officially dismissed all these theories as fantasy. They said that Solomon's tomb was likely looted or destroyed in ancient times. Nothing remained of it, until something happened in the year 2025 that changed everything. It all began quite normally. In the old city of Jerusalem, construction work was proceeding routinely. City workers were reinforcing the foundation of an ancient building dating back to the 1st century AD that was in danger of collapse. A completely normal task, carried out constantly in the old city. However, when the construction workers used ground-penetrating radar to check the condition of the soil, the equipment indicated something unusual. Deep underground, about 10 meters below the surface, a strange anomaly had appeared. A cavity. But it wasn't a natural cave or an ancient water reservoir. There are thousands of them under Jerusalem. This was a distinctly geometric shape. A rectangular chamber, clearly man-made. Construction work stopped immediately. The construction site was cordoned off. Archaeologists from Hebrew University were summoned. Then things got really strange. Such discoveries are usually widely reported in the news. Archaeologists love to talk about their finds. But this time, everything was different. A thick veil of secrecy surrounded the excavation site. Journalists were not allowed near it. Drones equipped with cameras hovered over the area, monitoring every movement within a radius of several buildings. At night, men in military uniforms without any identifying insignia patrolled the area. They checked the IDs of all passers-by and demanded that any photographs taken in the area be immediately deleted. Residents reported hearing the sounds of heavy machinery working underground at night. They saw trucks with tinted windows coming and going under the cover of darkness. Something was definitely going on there. Something momentous. And the authorities clearly didn't want the rest of the world to know about it. The first rumors didn't surface until 3 months later. An anonymous source from the Israel Antiquities Authority told reporters that something incredible had indeed been found 8 meters underground. A man-sized stone door, covered in ancient symbols. A door sealed with a complex mechanism that hadn't been opened for centuries. The authorities denied everything. Representatives of the Jerusalem municipality claimed that archaeological surveys were conducted regularly, but that they weren't considered of particular scientific interest. They had simply found another ancient water cistern or burial chamber, something not unusual for this city. But these transgressions continued. Blurry photos taken with cell phones through walls circulated on social media. The images showed strange symbols carved into the stone. Symbols that experts immediately recognized as variations of the Seal of Solomon, a 6-pointed star combined with mysterious signs whose meaning had been lost for thousands of years. Then people remembered the ancient prophecies. Jewish mystics and Kabbalists had spoken of this for centuries. The tomb of the great king will only be revealed in the last days, when the world stands on the brink of the greatest upheaval in human history. Masonic texts from the 18th century mentioned a 6-pointed star that would one day point the way to the greatest secret hidden beneath the holy city. Could it be that people's intuitions have been correct all these centuries? Could the tomb really be hidden beneath Jerusalem, patiently awaiting its moment? An anonymous source on the archaeological team, who only agreed to be interviewed for a substantial fee and the guarantee of absolute confidentiality, revealed only a small part of the terrifying details of the discovery. According to him, the astonishing discoveries began in the early days of the excavations. What they found was not just a stone slab, but an extremely complex puzzle devised by ingenious ancient engineers. On the surface of the door, they found 7 small depressions, each the size of a human hand. It was a coded lock, and the scientists had to reconstruct its mechanism piece by piece. Experts in ancient Hebrew and biblical history spent weeks studying the symbols, surrounding the Star of David and understanding the logic of the ancient builders. Gradually, it became clear that the code was based on sacred numbers from the life of Solomon. The construction of the temple took 7 years. 12 tribes made up the people of Israel. His reign lasted 40 years. When the archaeologists finally deciphered the sequence and began pressing the indentations in the correct order, everyone heard a sound that sent shivers down their spines. Deep within the massive stone structure, something clicked, spun, and creaked. A mechanism that had waited silently for thousands of years suddenly sprang to life. One by one, the indentations were activated with soft metal clicks. In the final stage, 3 points had to be pressed simultaneously. The team froze. They all knew that the ancient builders were famous not only for their craftsmanship, but also for their deadly traps designed to stop grave robbers. One wrong move, and tons of stone could crumble, burying antiquity's greatest secrets forever beneath a mountain of rubble. But the risk paid off. With a loud creak of stone against stone, the massive door began to turn slowly on invisible hinges. From the opening flowed air that hadn't touched the outside world for 3,000 years. It smelled of centuries-old dust, of ancient stone, and something else. Something intangible, but powerful. Something ancient and dominant that instinctively made everyone speak downward. Behind the door was a long corridor that sloped steeply down to the ground. The walls were so finely carved they looked like the work of modern machines. Not a single seam was visible, not a single flaw. It was as if the entire 30-meter-long corridor had been hewn from a single massive block of granite by tools unknown to us. There were no inscriptions, no drawings, no decorations on the walls, just perfectly smooth gray stone, disappearing into the darkness at a slight angle. The archaeologists descended. Slowly they moved through the corridor, lighting their way with powerful halogen lamps. Each footstep echoed in the silence of the subterranean. With every meter, the sense of something ancient and all-seeing grew. At the end of the corridor, the team stood before another door. But this one was completely different, smaller and simpler in design. It had no locks, no codes, no strange mechanisms. Just a smooth stone surface with a barely visible line along its edge indicating where it opened. The door opened with a gentle push, as if it had been deliberately left open. Then the archaeologists saw something that made their hearts stop with awe and fear. The burial chamber was quite modest in dimensions, about 5 meters long and 3 meters wide. The vaulted ceiling rose 4 meters high, conveying a sense of grandeur and mystical significance. But the air here seemed different, thicker, richer, older, as if time in this place moved more slowly, carrying the weight of past millennia. In the center of the chamber, exactly on the axis of symmetry, stood a sarcophagus. It wasn't made of gold or marble, as one might expect from the tomb of a great ruler. It was made of simple gray limestone, carved with a finesse unimaginable in its time. No decorations, not a single symbol, just perfectly smooth surfaces that seemed to absorb the lamp's rays and reflect no light. But it wasn't the sarcophagus that most astounded the researchers. Along the chamber's walls stood dozens of objects, neatly placed in specially carved niches. Pottery vessels and alabaster jars of varying sizes, manuscripts in copper containers, strange tools made of an unknown metal. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust, but in surprisingly good condition. On the floor, near the head of the sarcophagus, lay a small wooden box. The lid was slightly ajar, and something inside gently shone with a golden glow under the lamplight. The team spent 3 full days photographing and documenting every item in the chamber before they dared touch anything. Everyone was aware that they, on the cusp of the most important archaeological discovery in history. Any rash move could destroy priceless relics of the past forever. The first thing they wanted to examine was this particular box at the head of the coffin. Inside was a ring, a solid gold ring engraved with a six-pointed star. Within the star were other symbols, and on its rim was an inscription in ancient Hebrew: "Wisdom is mightier than the sword." It appeared to be the seal of Solomon, the legendary seal of the king whose stories had moved people for centuries. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that the gold in the ring had a unique chemical composition, matching precisely the descriptions of the metal from the legendary mines of Ophir. Radiocarbon dating of the tiny organic particles embedded in the inscription yielded a date, 970 BC, give or take 10 years, the year Solomon is supposed to have ascended the throne. But the ring proved to be more than just an ancient artifact. It emitted a faint but steady glow, a cold, golden light that none of the team's physicists could explain. Radiation detectors showed elevated levels around the ring, but the source of the radiation could not be determined. Fearing an unknown danger, the archaeologists placed the artifact in a special lead container and immediately handed it over to intelligence officers. The ring was taken to a secret laboratory for further examination. But the strangest thing happened next. A few hours after the Seal of Solomon was removed from the tomb, Israel launched airstrikes on Iran. Our sources convinced that this could not have been a coincidence. The timing between the artifact's removal and the outbreak of military action was extremely precise. The archaeologist does not know what happened to the ring next, but he remembers perfectly what happened next in the tomb, before the intelligence services removed the entire archaeological team from the site. The stone lid of the sarcophagus weighed several tons. Moving it even a few centimeters required a special lifting device. The archaeologists worked very slowly and carefully, aware that any clumsy movement could destroy something that had been preserved in perfect condition for 3,000 years. When the heavy covering was finally removed and uncovered, the first thing anyone saw was a piece of white cloth, shrouds that had somehow not decomposed. They had been soaked in resins and aromatic oils, the recipes of which modern science believed had been lost. These ancient preservatives proved more effective than any modern chemical. Beneath the shrouds lay bones. The skeleton of an adult male about 170 centimeters tall, very tall for the time, estimated age at death, about 50 to 60 years. The teeth were in excellent condition, indicating a high-quality diet. There were no signs of hard physical labor, and many clues suggested that the deceased had spent his life engaged only in intellectual activity. However, the most important discovery was made in a small alabaster amphora near the deceased's head. The amphora had been carefully sealed with wax and resin, and upon opening, two texts were found inside that would completely change scholars' understanding of ancient history. The first text was written on very thin parchment in ink of an as yet undetermined composition. The handwriting was elegant and confident, clearly that of an educated person. Next to the parchment lay a small lead tablet, the size of a human palm, engraved with symbols and letters. Radiocarbon dating of the bones, shrouds, and parchment yielded nearly identical results, between 950 and 900 BC, exactly the period when King Solomon reigned according to the biblical chronology. Was it just a coincidence? Or did the scholars already possess the remains of the wisest man in history, and perhaps even his writings? Linguists spent several weeks deciphering the first text, and what they read made them question their sanity. The opening lines read, "I did not build the temple for the Lord. I built it as a shield. Beneath it lies that which must not be named. It slept while we prayed, but knowledge awakened it." The text grew increasingly cryptic. The truth is not for people. Truth is like poison. In a golden cup, beautiful, seductive, but deadly to those who touch it. So I made up a lie. A beautiful lie to give people hope and peace. And the scariest part? When the iron starts thinking for itself, and people forget to hear the sound of the earth, they will return. You will hear the sound of their feet in the desert sand, their voice in the silence of the stars. The linguists read these lines over and over, not believing their eyes. Hadid thought, how could anyone have written something like this 3,000 years ago? The silence of the stars, a concept that only gained scientific significance in the 20th century. The second text was barely visible on a hand-sized lead tablet, engraved with symbols and letters. It spoke of the origin of humanity. And this story was completely different from anything written in the holy books. They created us not out of love, but out of practical necessity, it read. They needed work to perform tasks they considered beneath them. They fashioned us from clay and soul, and added to us pieces of their own spirit. And that's how we became human. What followed was even more astonishing. They needed not only work, but peace among new beings. They gave us faith, ancestral wisdom, sacred truths, everything that helps and guides humans. They revealed to us the mystery of God so that we would not seek other secrets. And finally, the most terrifying part. I saw them with my own eyes. I spoke to them. They showed me the stars and explained to me where they came from. But then they left. Not to the heavens, as humans believe, but deep within the earth, beneath my temple. They would return, they said, when humans were wise enough, or dangerous enough. The last lines on the tablet were barely legible. Written in bold above the main text, evidently in a trembling hand, they read, "Found too early, understood too late, acted too human." When the first translations of these texts leaked beyond the limited circle of scholars, the authorities reacted quickly and firmly. All material was immediately classified as top secret. The archaeologists who had worked on the artifacts were removed. They were removed from the burial site and placed in complete isolation in secure research facilities. They were forbidden from contacting the press or even their families. The official version was that excavations had been temporarily suspended for technical reasons. No significant discoveries had been made. All rumors were dismissed as speculation and hoaxes, but the leaks continued. One team member managed to take photos of the tablets with a mobile phone before all communication equipment was confiscated and non-disclosure agreements were enforced. These photos appeared online despite all attempts by the authorities to suppress them. Experts in ancient languages around the world began independently translating the mysterious text, and each new translation confirmed the impossible. Someone who lived 3,000 years ago somehow knew things that humanity would only discover in the 21st century. He wrote of a time when iron began to think. A perfect description of the age of artificial inti. As for listening for signals in the silence of the stars, humanity only began scanning the universe in the 1960s. As for genetic experiments and the creation of new life forms, technologies that have only been achieved in recent decades. But what's most frightening is that all these ancient prophecies are now being fulfilled before our eyes. The development of artificial intelligence is truly out of control. AI systems already outperform humans at most intellectual tasks, and their creators openly admit that they don't fully understand how their algorithms work. Genetic engineering now enables scientists to create new life forms in laboratories. Radio telescopes scan the universe day and night, searching for signals from intelligent civilizations, just as the ancient king predicted 3,000 years ago. Meanwhile, strange things continue to happen beneath Jerusalem itself. According to unofficial reports, there is already a vast network of man-made caves and tunnels beneath the Temple Mount. Ground-penetrating radar is revealing engineering structures there that are too subtle to have been built with ancient technology. Seismometers are recording. Strange subterranean vibrations in the area have nothing to do with tectonic activity. as if something is at work deep underground, something that shouldn't be there. What if Solomon's temple was just the tip of the iceberg? What if there is an entire subterranean complex hidden beneath the sacred mountain, built not by humans, but by those Solomon called the creators of humanity? However, these are only fragments, scattered remnants of knowledge about the mysterious tomb gleaned from various sources. Everything else is top secret. Official archaeological reports have disappeared from public records. Scientists remain silent. Even indirect references to the discovery have been carefully scrubbed from the internet. But if these fragments are true, we should take a closer look at what is happening in the world today. Solomon not only predicted future technologies, he also gave precise indications that the return of the creators has already begun. The first sign: inexplicable technological breakthroughs occurring simultaneously in various parts of the world. Isn't it strange that technologies that humanity has grappled with for centuries, artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, quantum physics, and interplanetary travel, suddenly become a reality within a few years? Sign 2: a sharp increase in the number of people reporting strange dreams, visions, and voices in their heads. It's as if something very powerful is trying to contact us. Sign 3: unexplained changes in animal behavior around the world. Mass migrations unrelated to climate change. Whales and dolphins stranding themselves on beaches for no apparent reason. And finally, sign 4: the discovery of an increasing number of ancient artifacts that don't fit the official chronology of human history. Yet all these discoveries are either classified as secret, declared fake, or simply disappear without a trace. The ancient tomb wasn't found by chance. It was opened just as humanity reached another turning point in its history. All evidence points to this being the final resting place of the wisest king of the ancient world. Sealed with the correct symbols, the remains of a man of the appropriate age. Radiocarbon dating perfectly matching the reign of Solomon. Gold from the legendary mines of Ophir. Mummification technology beyond anything known at that time. But how does one explain knowledge centuries, even millennia, before its time? How could a simple Iron Age king know that iron would begin to think? From the stillness of the stars? From genetic experiments? Either Solomon was the greatest prophet in human history, able to see thousands of years into the future, or he had already met representatives of the ancient civilization he described in his secret writings. Or perhaps the person buried in the tomb was not Solomon at all. Perhaps someone else used the great king's name to ensure that his message would reach future generations. Someone who knew the truth about humanity's origins and wanted to warn us. Or worse, what if the person lying in that tomb was one of the creators mentioned in the texts? Someone who took on human form to guide the development of our civilization from within? The voice of the greatest sage of the ancient world echoes from deep within the earth, making one last attempt to reach our consciousness. He warns us that time is running out, that our creators are already preparing for their return. But who is it that left us these warnings? A human, or something more? One by one, the prophecies are being fulfilled with terrifying accuracy. Only the final items on the dark list remain: the return of the creators, their judgment on the terrible destruction humanity has brought upon the planet, and their final decision on our fate. Solomon left us all the evidence, but the knowledge in these texts is thousands of years ahead of its time. Do you still believe that humans are the masters of their destiny and the pinnacle of evolution? Or are we simply awaiting the return of the true masters, the ones who once created us, who will soon hold us accountable for everything we have done to their world?